And today, the leader of the Wagner mercenary group fighting in eastern Ukraine, Yevgeny Prigozhin, said his group's next assignment may be in Russia, defending its territory. And in the latest, in an ongoing public feud with Russian military officials, he asked Russian prosecutors to investigate whether senior defense officials committed a crime. Now, for weeks, as you may know, Prigozhin has increased his criticism of Russian military leadership. He routinely now appears in these self-produced videos where he dresses up like one of his mercenary fighters and verbally attacks Russia's top generals. The question is, what's his end game? CNN's Melissa Bell takes a look at the man behind the powerful mercenary group.
For months now, Yevgeny Prigozhin has been leading the charge in Ukraine and stealing the limelight.
Guys, don't bully the Russian military.
The taunt typical as he announced the withdrawal of his Wagner mercenaries last week after claiming the first Russian advance in Ukraine in months. Power on the ground that has translated into far more open political confrontation with Moscow. Long known by his nickname as Putin's chef, the oligarch shared the Russian president's humble beginnings in the tougher neighborhoods of St. Petersburg. Reportedly a former convict, he used Putin's rise to build a vast catering empire. As Putin set his sights on Crimea and eastern Ukraine in 2014, Prigozhin's forces were there. The Wagner mercenary group that he founded became known as Putin's private army, operating on his behalf, but in the shadows, across the Middle East and Africa for years.
Wagner ruled!
But it took the chaos of the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine for Prigozhin to take center stage himself.
Шойгу! Герасимов!
Flexing his power and his voice.
Ты видишь? Вот Рома!
Which he raised loudly again this week against Russia's top military brass after drone attacks on Moscow brought the war far too close to home for comfort.
Вы являетесь Министерством обороны.
You are the Ministry of Defense. You didn't do a damn thing to stamp this out. Why are you allowing these drones to fly to Moscow?
Because propaganda is arguably what Yevgeny Prigozhin does best. Setting up this notorious troll farm in St. Petersburg, which was blamed for pumping out disinformation around the 2016 US presidential election. Prigozhin was sanctioned by the US despite denying any involvement. Now he is personally taking his propaganda machine on the road and across Russia, turning his attention to what he calls the enemy at home, with increasingly obvious political ambitions of his own.
While the system was stable, there was no place for him, and he was waiting and waiting. And then the system started collapsing, and he found the opening, and he burst into the system.
And Russia's political system, just like its history, appears to be something Prigozhin is very aware of.
All these divisions can end up in a revolution, just like in 1917. First, the soldiers will stand up, and after that, their loved ones will rise up.
With Prigozhin's very thinly veiled threats, he's also now clearly hoping that Russian society may be ready for a message even more hardline than that of the man who helped make him. And that, Anderson, is very much the point. There have been so many questions these last few months about why there has been no rebuke from Vladimir Putin, even in the face of such outspoken criticism on the part of Yevgeny Prigozhin. The key to that is that Prigozhin is himself far more hardline even than Vladimir Putin. If it were up to him, there would be mass mobilizations, any semblance of democracy and a veneer would be swept aside in the name of winning the war in Ukraine. That is Vladimir Putin's problem. He cannot be cracking down both on the Alexei Navalny's, the more moderate reformist parts of Russian society, and taking on the ultra-nationalists like Yevgeny Prigozhin. So in a sense, he is faced now with the man on whom he's come to depend in Ukraine, making it more and more clear that it is perhaps also Vladimir Putin that now depends on Yevgeny Prigozhin inside Russia itself. Anderson.
Fascinating. Melissa Bell, thank you so much.